Bullies humiliate poor girl. Elon Musk's reaction changes their lives forever. It was just another ordinary school day at Seaside High, or so it seemed. The bell rang, signaling the beginning of lunch, and students poured out of classrooms, chatting, laughing, and gathering in their usual spots around campus. For most of them, it was just another day in the familiar routine of school life. But for Lily, a shy and introverted girl from a low-income family, the day was anything but ordinary. She tried to blend into the background as much as possible, avoiding the sharp eyes of the popular kids. She wore her old hand-me-down clothes and carried the same worn-out backpack she'd had for years. She didn't fit in with the wealthier students, and she knew it. Lily sat alone at one of the lunch tables in the corner of the courtyard, picking at her food as she watched her classmates socialize in groups. She could hear snippets of their conversations, the latest fashion trends, expensive vacations, new gadgets. It was a world she wasn't a part of. She had learned to keep her head down, to ignore the snide comments and mocking glances that were often thrown her way. But today, Lily was the target. A group of popular girls, led by Madison, a girl known for her beauty and social status, made their way over to her table. They giggled as they approached, their laughter filling the air. Madison's smirk grew as she locked eyes with Lily, a look of superiority etched into her expression. Well, look who we have here," Madison said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Lily, right? The girl who still wears last year's clothes." Her friends burst into laughter, and Lily's face flushed with embarrassment. She stared down at her lunch, wishing she could disappear. "Oh, and look at that backpack," another girl chimed in, pointing at Lily's worn bag. "It's like something from the 90s. How do you even carry that around without being embarrassed?" The girls laughed again, their voices rising as they circled around Lily like vultures, each comment more cutting than the last. Lily tried to shrink into herself, hoping they'd get bored and leave her alone. But the teasing continued. "Why don't you just go back to your little corner and stay out of the way?" Madison said, her eyes narrowing as she crossed her arms. "Maybe then you won't embarrass yourself anymore." The other girls snickered, enjoying the spectacle. Lily's heart raced as she clutched her tray tightly, her throat tightening with the sting of humiliation. She wanted to say something to defend herself, but the words wouldn't come. She was too afraid. Then, just as the bullying reached its peak, a figure emerged from the side. It was Elon Musk. He had arrived at Seaside High unexpectedly, part of a surprise visit to speak to the students about innovation and the future of technology. His presence was supposed to be a momentous occasion, but right now, all eyes were on him as he observed the scene unfolding in front of him. Elon had been walking through the courtyard with a group of school administrators when he caught sight of the group surrounding Lily. The laughter and mockery were impossible to ignore, and he instinctively walked toward the scene, his curiosity piqued. He had grown up with his own fair share of difficulties, and he had always believed that kindness and understanding were the most important qualities anyone could have. Seeing Lily's discomfort and the bullying taking place right in front of him stirred something inside him. Hey, what's going on here?" Elon called out as he approached, his voice firm but calm. The bullies froze for a moment, their attention shifting from Lily to Elon. Madison's smile faltered as she realized who had just stepped into the scene. She quickly tried to recover, her expression turning from one of arrogance to one of feigned politeness. "Oh, Mr. Musk," she said, her voice sweet but insincere. "We were just having some fun with Lily here. Nothing serious." Elon's gaze remained steady, his expression unreadable. He glanced briefly at Lily, who was still sitting there, her face a mixture of embarrassment and fear. "I don't think that's what it looks like," Elon said calmly, his voice carrying the weight of someone who wasn't easily intimidated. "It looks like you're bullying her. And that's not okay." Madison's posture stiffened, and her friends exchanged nervous glances. They had never expected anyone, especially Elon Musk, to intervene. But Elon wasn't backing down. "Don't you think you've had enough fun at her expense?" Elon continued, his eyes now focused directly on Madison. "How would you feel if someone treated you like that? If someone judged you based on something you can't control?" The group of girls looked uncomfortable now, the laughter dying down. Elon's words hung in the air, and for a moment, The courtyard was eerily quiet. Madison glanced around, trying to find a way out, but there was no way to brush off the weight of Elon's words. Finally, she spoke, her voice a little less confident than before. "We were just joking around," she said, her tone defensive. "It's not that serious." Elon shook his head. "It's always serious when someone else is hurt by your actions. Jokes like that are only funny if the person on the receiving end isn't affected. But that's not the case here." Lily sat there, stunned. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. For the first time in what felt like forever, someone was standing up for her, speaking out against the injustice she had been facing. Elon turned to Lily then, his voice softening as he addressed her directly. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, his tone kind and reassuring. Lily nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm fine." Elon smiled at her, offering a warm, encouraging look. "You're stronger than you know," he said. "Don't let anyone make you feel small. The world needs more people like you, who can stand tall even when others try to bring them down." The bullies stood silent for a long moment, still processing the situation. Elon's words hung in the air, cutting through the tension. The courtyard, which had once been filled with the sounds of teasing and laughter, now felt still, almost as if the entire world had paused for a beat. Madison, who had once been the ringleader of the group, shifted uncomfortably on her feet. The bravado she had been carrying just moments ago was slowly eroding under the weight of Elon's calm yet firm response. She glanced at her friends, who, for the first time, looked uncertain, their heads down, unwilling to meet Elon's eyes. The silence was finally broken by one of the other girls in the group, Sarah, a quieter member of the clique. She stepped forward hesitantly, looking at Lily with a mixture of guilt and empathy in her eyes. "But I didn't mean for it to go this far," Sarah said softly, her voice faltering. "It was just supposed to be teasing, but I see now that it wasn't funny. I'm sorry, Lily." Lily's eyes widened in surprise. She wasn't expecting an apology, let alone from someone who had been part of the group tormenting her. But something in Sarah's eyes, something genuine, told her that this wasn't just another empty apology. It felt different. Lily swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Her voice was quiet, but she finally managed to speak. "It's okay," she said, though the words felt heavy. "I just wish it hadn't happened at all." The other girls shuffled awkwardly, glancing at one another. Madison, who had been the most outspoken, was visibly struggling with the shift in the dynamic. It was clear that the confidence she had once exuded had cracked. Her posture was no longer that of someone in control, but of someone who had just been confronted with the reality of their actions. After a long pause, Madison finally spoke, her voice softer and less arrogant than before. "Lily, I'm sorry too," she said. The words felt foreign on her tongue, but they were real. "I was just trying to fit in, and I didn't think about how it might make you feel. I never meant to hurt you." Elon, who had been quietly observing the exchange, nodded in approval. He was used to seeing people change their ways when they were shown compassion, but it still always amazed him how quickly someone could turn their perspective around if given the opportunity. "That's the first step," Elon said, his voice steady. "Acknowledging when we've made a mistake is the hardest part. But it's only the beginning. The real change comes when we act on those apologies." He turned to Lily, giving her a reassuring smile. "What they've done here today is a step forward. But it's up to you whether you want to accept it. If you do, just know that you're not defined by this moment. You're defined by how you rise above it." Lily nodded slowly, her heart still pounding in her chest, but a sense of relief began to wash over her. For the first time in a long while, she felt empowered. Elon's presence, his calm authority, and his kind words had changed the entire narrative of her day. I accept it," Lily said softly, looking at the group of girls. "But I hope this is a lesson for all of you. No one should ever feel like they're less than anyone else because of things they can't control." The bullies stood there, taking in her words, and for the first time, it seemed like they truly understood the weight of what they had done. The events in the courtyard were soon buzzing around the school. Word spread fast, and by the time the final bell rang that day, nearly every student had heard about the confrontation. Some were in disbelief, How could a group of popular students, led by Madison, ever apologize for something so cruel? Others, however, saw it as an opportunity to reflect. Lily's life didn't change overnight, but there was a noticeable shift. The bullying didn't stop immediately, but the atmosphere at Seaside High began to feel different. Students who had previously remained silent, either too afraid or indifferent to intervene, started to speak up. Teachers took notice as well, with some even reaching out to Lily to offer their support. Elon Musk's visit had been scheduled for a speaking engagement on technology and innovation, but what he had unknowingly sparked was something far more profound. It wasn't just about the future of AI or space exploration anymore. It was about human empathy, kindness, and how individuals could use their influence for good. The principal of Seaside High, Mr. Roberts, who had witnessed the events firsthand, took action. He called an all-school assembly the next week to address the issue of bullying and the importance of creating an inclusive environment. As he spoke about how important it was to treat one another with respect and dignity, he also shared the story of what had transpired between Lily and the bullies, specifically highlighting Elon Musk's role in the conversation. Sometimes, it takes someone from outside our world to remind us of the values we should already be living by, Mr. Roberts said, his voice firm but full of conviction. Today, we're going to talk about how we can be better to one another, and how we can make sure this school is a place where no one is ever made to feel less than. Bullying isn't just a joke, it's a harmful practice that can leave lasting scars. It's time for all of us to do better. For Madison and the others, the apology had been just the beginning. Their lives were transformed by that single moment of realization, and the weeks that followed were spent reflecting on the way they had treated others, including Lily. Madison, especially, found herself questioning everything she had once believed about popularity, social status, and what truly mattered in life. At first, the other students were skeptical. It was hard for them to believe that Madison, once the queen bee of Seaside High, had truly changed. But slowly, they began to see it in her actions. Instead of mocking other students, Madison and her friends began to stand up for those who were being mistreated. They apologized to other students they had wronged, and in some cases began using their influence to help others who were struggling. Madison, who had once prided herself on being the center of attention, started spending more time with students who had always been on the outskirts. She started helping organize school events that promoted inclusivity and understanding, working with Lily and others to ensure that no one felt excluded. It wasn't easy for them, especially at first. There were moments when the weight of their past mistakes came crashing down, and they had to fight against the old habits of judgment and ridicule that had once defined them. But with time, the group of bullies turned into a support system for those in need, helping to spread the message of kindness throughout the school. And through it all, Lily stood at the center, a symbol of strength and resilience. She didn't have to fight back. Instead, she watched as the people who had once tormented her grew into better versions of themselves, and she knew, deep down, that Elon's intervention had sparked something bigger than she could have imagined. Months passed, and the transformation at Seaside High was undeniable. The bullying that had once been a daily occurrence became a rarity. Students who had once been passive bystanders began to intervene when they saw someone being mistreated. Teachers noticed the difference in the classroom, where students were more open to discussing their feelings and supporting one another. Lily, once the quiet girl who was invisible to most of her classmates, became a voice for change. She started speaking at school assemblies, sharing her story with other students, and encouraging them to stand up for what was right. Her message was simple but powerful. Kindness and empathy should always outweigh cruelty. And then, in a twist that no one saw coming, Madison herself invited Lily to speak at a regional conference on bullying prevention. It was a surreal moment for both girls. Lily had never imagined a day when Madison, the girl who had made her life a living nightmare, would be the one advocating for her to share her story. But it wasn't just Lily who had changed, it was everyone around her. The ripples of that one moment with Elon Musk had spread far beyond the courtyard, shaping the students, the teachers, and even the entire community in ways they never expected. And as they gathered in the auditorium for the conference, Lily smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning. In the weeks following the conference, Seaside High's story began to spread beyond the school's walls. News outlets, social media, and even local radio stations picked up on the story of the bullied girl, the change in the bullies, and the surprising intervention from Elon Musk. It wasn't just the story of one incident, it was the story of a community coming together to rethink its values. Seaside High became a symbol of how schools could embrace change, compassion, and understanding. Other schools in the district reached out to learn more about how the transformation had happened so quickly. Teachers from different schools asked for advice on implementing anti-bullying programs, and local youth organizations sought out Lily and Madison to speak at events about their personal journeys. Lily, who had once felt isolated and ignored, found herself at the center of something much bigger than she had ever imagined. People wanted to hear her story, but more importantly, they wanted to hear about the lessons she had learned. It wasn't just about the apology she had received, it was about how a community could come together to make things right. The media attention was overwhelming, but Lily remained grounded. She never expected to be seen as a role model, but as the weeks passed, she realized that her story could help others who felt invisible, like she once had. She began to speak more openly about the importance of empathy, of looking past the surface and understanding what others were going through. Her words, simple yet profound, began to resonate with people far beyond her school. One afternoon, as Lily prepared for another school assembly where she would share her story, she received a message from Elon Musk. "Lily, you've done incredible things. Keep pushing the envelope and showing others what true strength looks like. I'm proud of you. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out." The words warmed Lily's heart. She had never expected Elon's intervention to have such a lasting impact on her life, but now, as she stood on the precipice of something greater, she realized just how far-reaching his kindness had been. Madison, who had once been the leader of the bullying group, found herself in a new role, that of a mentor. As the transformation in Seaside High continued, Madison knew that the path she had taken was not just about apologizing, it was about demonstrating that her actions could truly reflect a change in heart. At first, the other students had been cautious. They weren't sure if Madison's apology was genuine, or if she was just trying to reclaim her social standing. But Madison, with the support of Lily, worked hard to prove that her change was real. She spent her lunch breaks helping with school events, volunteering in the community, and working alongside Lily to create safe spaces for students who were struggling with isolation. As she sat with Lily one afternoon in the school library, going over some new initiatives for the upcoming year, Madison looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and awe. She could hardly believe how far they had come, from the days of bullying and laughter to a partnership built on understanding and empathy. "I can't believe I'm sitting here, working with you," Madison said, shaking her head in disbelief. "A few months ago, I was the one who was hurting you. And now, we're in this together, trying to help other kids." Lily smiled softly, feeling the weight of Madison's words. "We're stronger together," she said simply. "We've both grown so much. It's about using our experiences to help others see that change is possible. Even when it feels like things will never get better, they can. It just takes time." Madison nodded, her eyes focused on the stack of papers in front of them. She had come to realize that true leadership wasn't about power or popularity, it was about lifting others up and guiding them toward becoming better versions of themselves. That was the path she was now committed to walking. "We're not perfect, Lily," Madison said quietly. "But we can keep trying to be better. For ourselves and for everyone else." Lily didn't respond immediately, but she knew that what Madison had said was true. The journey wasn't over. The work was ongoing, and they both had a role to play in making their school and community a place where kindness prevailed over cruelty. The legacy of their actions would be shaped by their continued commitment to the values they had learned. As the school year drew to a close, Seaside High was preparing for its annual end-of-year assembly. It was a day of reflection and celebration, a day to acknowledge the accomplishments of the students and the teachers who had worked tirelessly to create a positive and inclusive atmosphere. This year, however, the assembly held special significance. It wasn't just about grades or awards, it was about the transformation that had taken place within the school. The students, the faculty, and even the parents had worked together to create a new culture of kindness and support. It was a new beginning, and everyone involved had contributed to that change. Lily was invited to speak at the assembly, and this time, she wasn't just telling her story. She was sharing a message that had been shared by so many others, that we are all capable of growth, that we all have the ability to rise above our circumstances, and that no one should ever be made to feel less than because of their background or appearance. As she stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd of students, teachers, and parents, she felt a wave of emotion wash over her. The girl who had once been invisible was now at the forefront of a movement, her voice echoing in the hearts of those who had once overlooked her. "I never thought this would be my life," Lily said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I never thought I'd be standing here, speaking to all of you about what it means to be kind, to be empathetic, and to be a force for good. But what I've learned is that every single person has the potential to change. And if we choose to make the world a better place, one small step at a time, we can make a real difference." The room was silent as Lily spoke, her words resonating with everyone who had been a part of the journey. She wasn't just speaking for herself, she was speaking for everyone who had ever felt out of place, for everyone who had ever been hurt, and for everyone who had ever doubted that they could be more. When Lily finished her speech, the audience rose to their feet, applauding her bravery and strength. It wasn't just an applause for the girl who had been bullied, it was an applause for the entire school, for the community that had come together to break down the barriers of hate and judgment. As the school year came to a close, Seaside High became known as a model for other schools across the region. Their anti-bullying programs, their focus on empathy and understanding, and the real, lasting change that had taken place were acknowledged at a state level. Lily, Madison, and the other students who had been part of the transformation were invited to speak at other schools, sharing their stories and the lessons they had learned along the way. It wasn't just about what had happened at Seaside High. It was about showing that every school, every community, could create change if they worked together. They could build a culture of kindness, inclusivity, and respect if they took the time to listen to each other and to lift each other up. Lily knew that this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. The work they had started would continue long after graduation, long after the final assembly of the school year. But in her heart, she knew that she had helped create something special, something that would continue to inspire change for years to come. And as for Madison, she had become a different person, someone who no longer needed the approval of her peers to feel valuable. She had learned that true strength came from standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. And that was a lesson that would stay with her for the rest of her life. As summer break arrived, Seaside High was still buzzing with the aftermath of Lily's powerful speech. The school had not only transformed internally, but their story had captured the attention of news outlets across the country. What had begun as a single moment of intervention from Elon Musk had become something far larger, a movement that spread across other schools, organizations, and even social media platforms. Lily found herself in the spotlight, though it wasn't a place she had ever expected to be. She was invited to give interviews with local news stations, sharing her story and discussing the lessons she had learned about resilience, kindness, and standing up for what was right. Her words were met with overwhelming support, with many students, parents, and educators from across the country reaching out to her, sharing their own stories of bullying and how they had been impacted by her journey. Despite the media frenzy, Lily remained grounded. She knew that this attention wasn't about her, it was about the message. It was about showing others that change was possible and that anyone, no matter their background, could rise above adversity. One afternoon, as Lily sat in her room scrolling through social media, she came across a post that made her pause. It was a message from a high school in another state. Students there were starting their own anti-bullying campaign, inspired by the changes at Seaside High. The post read, "We're starting a movement. Seaside High showed us that change is possible. We're going to stand together, spread kindness, and stop bullying in our school. Join us. #be the change." Lily stared at the post, a smile slowly spreading across her face. It was one thing to see her school change, but it was something entirely different to see the ripple effect spreading to other places, to know that her story was inspiring others to take action. She immediately texted Madison about it. "Look at this," she wrote, sending a screenshot of the post. "They're starting their own campaign because of what happened here." Madison replied almost instantly, "That's amazing. It's more than we ever imagined, huh?" It's happening everywhere. Lily felt a surge of pride. This was exactly what they had hoped for, real, tangible change, spreading across communities, inspiring others to take a stand against bullying and injustice. This was just the beginning. For Madison, the transformation was ongoing. As the weeks passed, she continued to work alongside Lily, helping organize events, raising awareness about bullying, and spreading the message of kindness throughout Seaside High and beyond. However, despite her outward success, Madison was struggling with something deeper, guilt. While she had apologized and made amends for her past actions, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to be done, especially in her own heart. She was haunted by the memory of how she had treated Lily, and as the public acclaim for her changed behavior grew, Madison began to fear that she was being praised for something she wasn't truly at peace with yet. One afternoon, after an especially successful event at school, Madison sat alone in the student lounge, her thoughts spiraling. She had spent so much time focusing on her public redemption that she hadn't truly processed the weight of her past actions. She was interrupted by a gentle knock at the door. It was Lily, holding a stack of papers for their upcoming anti-bullying initiative. "Hey, you good?" Lily asked, taking a seat next to Madison. Madison sighed deeply. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking." Lily raised an eyebrow. "About what?" Madison hesitated before speaking. "About everything. About how I treated you. I know I've apologized, but sometimes it feels like I haven't done enough. Like, the public stuff is great, but does it really make up for the way I made you feel?" Lily placed the papers down and turned to face Madison. "I know you're still working through it, but what you're doing now is enough. You've shown that you're really changing, and that's what matters. We can't fix everything in a day. It's about the long-term actions we take." Madison looked at her, a soft smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "You're right. I guess I just don't want to forget where I came from, you know?" Lily nodded. "And you won't. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're showing people that change is possible, and that's something that will stay with you forever." Madison let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The weight in her chest lightened just a bit. "Thanks, Lily. For everything. I don't think I could have done this without you." Lily smiled. "You were always capable of it. You just needed to see it yourself." As Madison and Lily continued their work, they found themselves not only healing their own wounds but helping others do the same. The more Madison let go of her past mistakes and focused on the present, the more she saw how much her actions could inspire change. She wasn't perfect, but she was learning, and that was the most important part. The following year, Lily and Madison were invited to speak at a national conference for youth empowerment. It was a huge honor, but it also brought with it a great deal of pressure. They would be addressing hundreds of students and educators from across the country, sharing their story of transformation and spreading the message of anti-bullying. The night before their speech, they sat together in their hotel room, nervously going over their notes. Lily could tell that Madison was anxious, but she also knew that this was another opportunity for them to make a real difference. "Are you ready for this?" Lily asked, looking up from her notes. Madison looked at her, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. "I think so. But it's one thing to speak in front of our school. This feels bigger." Lily smiled reassuringly. "We've been through worse. We're doing this because we believe in it. And the people who are in that room? They need to hear what we have to say." The next day, as they took the stage in front of the packed auditorium, both girls felt the weight of the moment. They had come so far from the bullying incident at Seaside High, and now they were standing in front of a crowd, about to share their journey with the world. As they spoke about their experiences, the bullying, the apology, and their efforts to spread kindness, they felt the power of their words resonate with the audience. The room was quiet as students and educators alike listened intently, absorbing every word. When they finished their speech, the applause was deafening. The audience stood and cheered, not just for the girls, but for the message they had brought. A message that showed people that change was possible, that no one was defined by their worst moments, and that kindness could heal even the deepest wounds. As they walked off the stage, their hearts were full. This was more than just a speech. It was the culmination of everything they had worked for. It was a moment of reflection, but also a moment of hope. Their message had been heard, and they knew it would continue to spread. Years later, as Lily and Madison prepared to graduate from high school, the ripple effect of their work was still felt. Seaside High had transformed from a school plagued by bullying to one where inclusivity and kindness were the foundation of its culture. Students, teachers, and parents had all played a role in making the school a better place. Lily, who had once been the shy, quiet girl, was now one of the most respected voices in her community. She had gone on to study social work, driven by the desire to help others who felt the way she once had. Madison, on the other hand, had become a leader in the anti-bullying movement, speaking at conferences across the country and advocating for policies that promoted mental health and emotional support for students. The bond between the two girls had only grown stronger over the years. They had seen each other through their darkest moments and celebrated their greatest triumphs. They had both found their voices, and together, they had helped to change not only their school but also the world around them. Elon Musk's intervention had been the catalyst, but it was the actions of Lily, Madison, and the Seaside High community that had truly created lasting change. They had shown the world that even the smallest of moments, an intervention, a word of encouragement, an apology, could change lives forever. Years passed, and both Lily and Madison found themselves at a crossroads in their lives. Graduation from Seaside High had been bittersweet, a culmination of everything they had worked for and a gateway to new challenges. For both of them, it was an opportunity to expand on the lessons they had learned and to continue using their voices to spread kindness and empathy. Lily had chosen to pursue a degree in social work. Throughout her studies, she found herself diving deeper into the psychology of bullying, the impacts it had on students' mental health, and how schools could create supportive environments for everyone. While many of her peers were focused on academic excellence or securing jobs in prestigious fields, Lily was passionate about creating safe spaces for vulnerable students, those who had felt invisible or out of place just like she once had. She interned at several organizations during her college years, working closely with underprivileged communities, those affected by bullying, and youth who struggled with mental health issues. Lily quickly became known for her compassionate approach to helping others, drawing on her own experiences to show that change was not only possible, it was essential. Madison, on the other hand, had followed a slightly different path. After high school, she attended a university known for its leadership programs, where she majored in public policy and social justice. Although she had initially been apprehensive about public speaking and taking on leadership roles, she had quickly grown into an advocate for positive change. Madison focused her academic work on anti-bullying initiatives, writing papers, and working on projects aimed at creating real legislative changes to protect students in schools nationwide. Her passion for advocacy led her to intern for various nonprofits and youth organizations. Madison didn't want to just talk about change, she wanted to create policies that would ensure it happened. She had begun drafting proposals for school systems to implement mandatory anti-bullying programs, and she had already met with local politicians to discuss how they could fund these initiatives. As both Lily and Madison navigated their individual paths, their friendship remained as strong as ever. They would often meet up, swapping stories about their work, sharing their triumphs, and reflecting on how far they had come from the bullying incident at Seaside High. One afternoon, during their regular catch-up session, Lily and Madison sat in a coffee shop near Madison's college campus, discussing a new opportunity that had been presented to them. They had been invited to collaborate on a project with a national youth organization that focused on bullying prevention. It was the kind of project that would allow them to reach hundreds of thousands of students across the country. "Can you believe this?" Madison asked, her voice filled with excitement. "We've been asked to be part of a national anti-bullying campaign. They want us to go to schools across the U.S. to talk about what we did at Seaside High and how we turned things around." Lily smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "It feels unreal. A few years ago, I would never have imagined that this would be our life. We've gone from just trying to survive high school to now changing the way kids experience school altogether." "I know," Madison replied. "It's huge. But it's also a little intimidating, isn't it? I mean, this is our chance to make a lasting impact. We're going to be speaking to kids who are in the same position we were in, and we need to make sure we're doing it right." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "It's definitely a big responsibility. but I know we're ready for it. We have the experience, and we've seen firsthand how important this work is." The project quickly gained momentum, and soon, Lily and Madison were traveling across the country, visiting schools, meeting with students, and speaking at events. Their message was simple but powerful: bullying was not a joke, and everyone deserved to feel seen, heard, and respected. They spoke not only about their personal journeys but also about the lessons they had learned from Elon Musk's intervention. They talked about how one moment of kindness, one act of standing up for what was right, could change the course of someone's life. They shared the story of how the bullies at Seaside High had transformed, not through punishment, but through understanding and reflection. Their speeches were met with rapt attention, and soon the two of them were being invited to speak at national conferences and events. The ripple effect of their work continued to grow, and soon they were being recognized as leaders in the fight against bullying. The impact of Lily and Madison's work reached its pinnacle when they were invited to speak at a national summit for educators and policymakers. The summit was held in Washington, D.C., and it was a rare opportunity for them to present their ideas to those in power, the people who could help enact real, systemic change across the country. As they stood on the stage before a crowd of influential figures, Lily and Madison felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. They knew that this was their chance to influence national policy on bullying prevention and school safety. They had spent months preparing for this moment, refining their message and practicing their speech. Lily took a deep breath as she approached the podium, her heart pounding in her chest. "When I was in high school," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion, "I felt invisible. I was a target for bullying, and no one stood up for me. But one moment, one person, changed everything. And that moment didn't just change my life, it changed the way I see the world." She glanced over at Madison, who nodded at her, giving her a silent but powerful gesture of support. Lily continued, her voice growing more confident. "We've all heard the stories about bullying. The kids who are teased, isolated, and ignored. But what we don't talk about enough is the impact that bullying has on a person's future. Bullying doesn't just affect someone in high school. It shapes who they become, how they interact with the world, and how they see themselves." Madison stepped up to the podium as Lily paused, and the two of them shared the stage, speaking together. "But there's hope," Madison said. "Bullying can be prevented. We know that because we've seen it happen. Through education, empathy, and action, we can create a world where kindness prevails over cruelty. And it starts with all of us, right here, right now." As they finished their speech, the room erupted in applause. For a moment, Lily and Madison stood in stunned silence, taking in the impact of what they had just shared. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was about creating a world where no one had to suffer in silence, where no one had to feel alone. They had started with a simple mission: to make their school a better place. Now, they were on a national stage, inspiring others to take action and make the world a better place for all students. As the years continued to unfold, the movement that Lily and Madison had ignited continued to expand. Schools across the country adopted new anti-bullying policies, and districts implemented programs designed to foster empathy, understanding, and inclusivity. Educators began using Lily and Madison's story as a blueprint for how to engage students in discussions about kindness and respect. But the lasting impact wasn't just in the policies or programs. It was in the hearts of the students who had been touched by Lily and Madison's message. These were the students who, like Lily once had, felt invisible and alone. These were the students who had been bullied and felt like there was no way out. But now, thanks to the efforts of Lily, Madison, and so many others, these students knew they didn't have to suffer in silence. Lily and Madison's story had become a beacon of hope for students everywhere. They had shown the world that change was not just possible. It was inevitable when people came together and worked toward a common goal. They had shown the world that kindness could heal even the deepest wounds. And as Lily stood in front of a classroom full of students, teaching them about empathy and the importance of standing up for others, she smiled to herself, knowing that the work they had started all those years ago was still going strong. They had changed lives, not just their own, but the lives of countless others. And the best part was, their work was just getting started.